Can you unpack what shakedown means to you?
Yeah, shakedown basically means extortion. People are used to thinking of extortion in the context of, what the mafia does. They visit a local a butcher shop in Buffalo, New York, and they basically say, look, if you want to pay protection money, it'd be terrible if something happened to this shop. Pay protection money and we'll make sure that nothing happens. Well, that's extortion. We all recognize that's illegal. We've seen that in movies. Some people have experienced that. Government oftentimes can function the same way. There are many members of Congress that use tools and techniques that aren't widely discussed. I've written about them. Members of Congress have talked to me about them. They have something called a milker bill. It doesn't have anything to do with the dairy industry. It's designed to milk money from certain industries. So how does a milker bill work? Well, if I'm the chairman of a powerful committee in Congress and I need to raise money, or let's say I need to find a lobbying opportunity for my son, I'm going to introduce a bill in Congress to, let's say, put a 20% surtax on the high-tech industry in Silicon Valley. Now, I don't actually believe in this bill. I don't even necessarily want this bill to pass. But what's going to happen is that when I introduce that bill, I'm going to have a flood of lobbyists from Silicon Valley come and say, Congressman Schweizer, why are you introducing this bill? And what will happen over the next 60 days is a dance whereby they will come and meet. They will hold fundraisers for me. They will write campaign checks to me. They might even hire my son or my nephew as a lobbyist for them. This happens all the time. My question fundamentally is, how is that any different than the shakedown of the shop owner in Buffalo, New York? It's the same form of extortion. It's the same element that says, look, something bad is going to happen to you. I'm going to take more money away unless you pay me protection money now. And that happens in Washington, D.C. all the time. And it's the kind of extortive behavior that's become all too familiar in Washington. I think that there's sort of a myth. A lot of people feel that the problem in Washington is that there's all this money flowing into Washington, that corporations and businesses around the world are just happy to send their money to Washington, D.C. They don't really want to, but they feel like they have to, because if they don't, bad things are going to happen to them. And that's exactly what the political class in Washington wants them to believe, because it's so lucrative for the political class.
So business model, number one, introduce a bill that you have no interest in to scare off whoever it is in any kind of an industry, meat, technology, healthcare, whatever it may be. Then wait for the lobbyists of those companies to reach out to you to say, hey, we don't think this is a good bill. Can we change your mind, et cetera, et cetera. Then what happens? Because is it a way of me paying your campaign, or is it side money? What happens next? Because that's the question.
It's a great question. Oftentimes it's campaign money. Actually, in my book, Extortion, there's an example from a gentleman named Mr. Hofmeister, who's the CEO of Shell Oil. And he described a meeting that he had in 2009. You remember in 2009, oil prices were pretty high. He sat before a congressional committee. Members of Congress, including Maxine Waters, essentially said, we want to nationalize your company. We think it's outrageous, the profits you're making. Hofmeister reported to me, and I put in my book, that after that meeting, Congressman Waters talked to him and said, I might understand your issue better if we spend some time together. And this was basically saying, you need to raise money for me, and I will take the threat for nationalizing your business away. So what you're doing is you're having a series of coded conversations, but you know exactly what's going on. A shakedown is taking place. And the beauty or the genius of a milker bill is you don't actually want it to pass. If I introduce a bill for a 20% tax on Silicon Valley and that bill passes, guess what? I can't introduce that bill again and shake down Silicon Valley. I actually want the bill to fail. One of the reasons that you see a lot of tax credits that are passed, for example, in 1981, Congress passed a bill for an R&D tax credit for companies to invest in research and development. People wonder in the business community, why has that tax credit never been made permanent? Well, the reason they ask that question is they're not thinking about this as a shakedown. If they make the tax credit permanent, congressmen can't go back to them and ask them for money when they have to extend it. So they have these things called tax extenders. We're going to extend a tax credit for 2 to 3 years. And then what's going to happen is they're going to have to come, they're going to meet with me, they're going to raise more money with me, and then I'm going to vote to extend it for another couple of years. But I'm never going to make it permanent, because if I make it permanent, I lose my leverage and my ability to extract money from them.